In 1981, fans were treated to one of the greatest fights of all time. The young Mexican phenom, Salvador Sanchez, would take on the Puerto Rican powerhouse, Wilfredo Gomez. Besides the draw in his professional debut, Gomez was a perfect 32-0 with 32 KOs. Up to this point, he had defended his bantamweight title 13 times, and now he would be moving up in weight to challenge Sanchez, who most agreed was the greatest boxer to ever come out of Mexico. With a record of 40 wins and 30 KOs, Sanchez was experienced beyond his years, and he was no stranger to hard-hitting adversaries. But then again, he had never seen anyone quite like Gomez in the ring before. Their respective countries already had a heated rivalry, and now their two greatest warriors would face off against each other in what would become known as the Battle of the Little Giants. Wilfredo Gomez had insane power in both hands, and both of them were set up off his tremendous jab. He kept his lead arm lower and half extended so the jab could get there faster, but the way he threw the punch wasn't that impressive. It was what he did with it afterwards, locking his opponent's head in place and obscuring their vision to set up his right. Or baiting a jab defense to set up his left. On top of this, he had beautiful head movement, great offensive and defensive footwork, and could throw lightning-fast combinations, shoe-shining to the body to set up shots to the head. Sanchez was pure poetry in motion. His fluid, graceful rhythm helped disguise his offense and kept him one beat ahead of his opponents. Few boxers in history could make his opponents miss and then pay for it like Sanchez. His short stance and bouncing, agile footwork meant he could change angles quickly, but he could fluidly transition into a power stance with low head movement in an instant, chaining big shots and counterpunching, before easing back right into dancing. When his footwork and head movement didn't work, he had excellent cover blocks. And when those failed, he could fall back on his mastery of rolling with punches, a necessity for anyone who fights as aggressive and risky as he did. And lastly, both men were warriors. Though both skillful beyond belief, they loved nothing more than the pure thrill of contest, pitting their strength and intelligence against that of their competitor. And that's why they had each sought out the strongest challenge possible. While these men's respective countries may have had rivalries, it was for these aforementioned reasons that anyone who knew boxing was ecstatic to see this fight. A mix of salsa and mariachi music serenaded the pre-fight walks, and the nearly 5,000 in attendance started at a fever pitch from the moment Sanchez and Gomez entered the ring. Surrounded by an arena full of Mexican and Puerto Rican flags, the rival crowds would somehow only get louder in the ensuing rounds. But once you see why, you won't blame them. The two champions met in the center, feeling each other out. The nearly equal back and forth showed only a preview of what was yet to come. But Gomez wasn't known for his patience. He backed Sanchez to the ropes. Sanchez wasn't known for backing down. His explosive retaliation momentarily backed Gomez off, but Gomez would not be denied. Here, Gomez's reckless hook betrayed him, giving Sanchez just enough space to slip in a counter straight. Already off balance from throwing with everything he had, Gomez stumbled into a terrible position. For a terrific boxer like Sanchez, that was all he needed. Even at this weird angle, Sanchez caught his rival with a punch hard enough to put him on the deck. Gomez got to his feet. Sanchez swarmed, and Gomez tried to clinch. But the Mexican tore out of it with stiff punches. Hurt and on the verge of getting knocked down again, Gomez still never stopped fighting, reaching his mark a few times as he brawled with Sanchez. As the round came to a close, Gomez wobbled back to his corner. His grit had let him survive. and now he would be looking for payback. But round 2 presented yet another problem for Gomez. As if things weren't bad enough already, he was now facing a tactical roadblock. Sanchez was winning the jab battle. This was a huge deal, since Gomez needed his jabs to set up his power punches. He couldn't use the spent punch to control Sanchez's head because he couldn't get off the punch in the first place. Sanchez kept beating him, getting there first with his longer reach and superior speed, snapping the Puerto Rican's head back. But more than his physical attributes, it was Sanchez's fluid, unpredictable, and high-paced rhythm, set up with his bouncing footwork, that allowed Salvador to land his jab nearly at will. But Gomez wasn't out of options either. He winged wild overhands that were too big for Salvador to ignore, herding him to the ropes, making it easier for Gomez to put him in the corner. Now the jab was irrelevant. Gomez could use either arm to pin his adversary in place, or utilize a touch of wrestling to line up his blistering power punches. Sanchez did not like getting bullied. He found places for punches of his own, navigating the tight space with sidesteps to fit in punches at lightning speed. The crowd could barely contain itself as the pair traded against the ropes, each showcasing their ability to avoid and absorb each other's best strikes. The bell rang out, and with the near-even second round, Gomez had clawed his way back from a disastrous start. Sanchez may have won the first round war, but the battle of the little giants was far from over. The third round looked like the men were putting on an exhibition to demonstrate head movement. Sanchez started it by slipping and rolling under a right hand. When Gomez leaned his weight on him, Sanchez pivoted outside before shuffling back to avoid a whistling hook. Gomez proved he was just as slick, finally getting his timing down to slip many of Sanchez's jabs. Both fighters were extremely adept at using their head movement to feint and to bait punches for counter opportunities. This fight was no exception, each showing off their best tricks and having moments of success. But ultimately, Gomez was getting the better of these exchanges now. Once he adjusted to Sanchez's speed and rhythm so that he could avoid many of his jabs, he had the breathing room to execute his own game plan. Thanks to his wrestling and investing more in body shots this round, Gomez was consistently opening targets to Sanchez's head. The bell capped off another close round, but it was Gomez who was gaining ground. Sanchez needed to change things up, and that's exactly what he did. He made every effort to maintain his position in the center of the ring, staying put to throw incredible counters and pick away with tight jabs. Shortening the jab and upping the tempo can be especially effective against opponents who utilize big evasive movements, because it forces them to readjust their position and break their rhythm. These jabs didn't hit as hard, but they were piling on. Gomez's eyes were already damaged from the first round, and now they were starting to close, trapping Gomez in a catch-22 where he couldn't see the jabs coming, which made it harder to see the next jabs coming. But he wouldn't have his momentum broken that easily. He finally managed to press Sanchez to the ropes near the end of the round, and he did not waste the opportunity. But rather than look for a way out, Sanchez chose to stand his ground and try for counters. Neither man landed flush thanks to the pair's defensive mastery. They weaved through the fire, confidently tracking where and when they had a chance to counter or defend. Through this firestorm of punches, it was Gomez who began to find the mark with uppercuts, timing Sanchez as he lowered his head. Round 5 picked up where round 4 left off, as if there hadn't been a break at all. Gomez pushed Sanchez to the ropes and unleashed a torrent of punishment. But Sanchez landed some amazing counters by getting his head and body off angle, then firing back. But still, Gomez was timing Sanchez's head movement, driving him into punches. Once off the ropes, Sanchez continued piecing his rival up with short jabs, stinging like a swarm of bees, causing an allergic reaction all around Gomez's eyes. Gomez fought through the damage, pinning Sanchez with his lead hand and shuffling to a new angle before landing hard shots. But at the end of the round, Gomez's ferocious hook, usually a fight ender, cost him yet again. Sanchez used one of his oldest tricks, rising up from his crouch and retreating just enough to evade the punch. His own fist threw Gomez off balance, allowing Sanchez to turn the tables. Now Gomez was pressed against the ropes, kept in place by Sanchez's relentless stream of leather. It was a strong finish for Salvador, one that left an equally strong impression with the judges. But that wouldn't matter. This leg of the Mexico-Puerto Rico rivalry would not come down to points. A blind man could see from a mile away that this fight would not go the distance. From the very start of the sixth, Gomez pursued Sanchez like a madman. Whether he was concerned about the ticking time bomb that was his failing vision, or simply wanted to pay Sanchez back for the final moments in the fifth, he was determined to prove his point. Though he managed to connect with some terrific shots, Sanchez now seemed entirely committed to boxing from long range. Using every bit of stellar footwork that he possessed, he L-stepped and lateral shuffled out of corners, biting into Gomez's eyes with crisp jabs. When Gomez did manage to corner him, Sanchez would throw rapid-fire punches until he had the space to move. The round came to a close, and while the punch count may not have shown major progress on either side, Sanchez was winning a war of attrition thanks to the ever-worsening disfigurement of Gomez's eyes. Sanchez knew that time was not on Gomez's side. If he so chose, he might be able to take the next few rounds off and wait for the ringside physician to call it off. But for the Mexican warrior, this would not be near good enough. Not for Salvador Sanchez. So in round 7, Sanchez no longer sat behind his jab, once again exchanging in shootouts. And he needed to, because somehow Gomez wasn't done yet, effectively cutting off the ring and shuffling into lead hooks. The two went to work against the ropes. Gomez caught Sanchez with one of the best punches of the fight. A clipping right hook followed by a tight, crushing left hook that turned Salvador's chin and buckled his knees. While this was a fantastic moment for Gomez, it was one of the only times thus far that he truly rattled his opponent. Both men had their own style and preferences, but as far as what skills they could employ, they were nearly equal in most aspects. I say most, because there was one area where Sanchez was leaps and bounds ahead, rolling with punches. Even when Gomez connected with one of his signature power shots, shots that had put 32 of his last 32 opponents down for good, Salvador could mitigate the force by moving with it. Gomez, on the other hand, rarely did this, meaning that Sanchez's shots tended to land full force. So while both men had landed great shots during the fight, it was Gomez taking on heaps of damage. But now, finally, this one punch had clearly bothered Sanchez. Could Gomez land something similar before it was too late? One man would touch the canvas in the very next round. Gomez started strong with a masterful cross off of Sanchez's jab, but Sanchez immediately answered back, timing Gomez's head movement to land a right of his own. Then they went at it against the ropes, each determined to stand their ground and end the night with a knockout. Gomez landed one more counter right that Sanchez couldn't seem to fully roll. Rubbing his nose, a look of irritation flashed across his face. But then his calm veneer reappeared, and he went back to being pure ice. Gomez stayed on him, endlessly pursuing close-quarter combat against the ropes. Sanchez stood to meet him, trading leather for leather. Like two bulls with locked horns, they threw away finesse, looking to see who was strongest. The two fired off 3 left hooks in a row. They unleashed a 4th hook, but only Gomez connected, forcing Sanchez to step back before diving back into the fray. He pushed forward aggressively, working through a short clinch exchange and slamming a rear uppercut into Gomez's chin. It bothered Gomez, whose demeanor changed entirely. He seemed slow and hesitant to engage, a bizarre sight to anyone who had watched him fight before. Sanchez noticed too. He charged forward and poured it on. And although Gomez connected with the hard right hand, Sanchez rolled it and continued his assault. He crushed Gomez with a right of his own, beating and battering at him, every punch more punishing than the last. All his shots slightly sharper, slightly better aimed. Although the proud Puerto Rican smiled through the punches, his body betrayed him. Gomez went down after a vicious flurry from Sanchez, the punches pushing him through the ropes until he finally fell to the floor. One of the little giants had toppled over, the impact sending shockwaves through the boxing world. Salvador Sanchez had cemented his legacy even further. He was still the featherweight king. Mexican's greatest champion passed away only a year after this fight. He was only 23, so there's no telling what he could have accomplished. If nothing else, we have this tremendous performance. It must be said, Wilfredo Gomez deserves so much more recognition, not only for the rest of his career, but for putting up a great fight and giving us an all-time classic against Sanchez. In fights like these, watching 40 years later, you're somehow still rooting for both men. That's what happens when the best fights the best. If you want to learn more about the sweet science or other forms of martial arts, you can check out my books, linked below. From The Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.